Let's go! If we could address you directly right now.
Everything comes full circle.
That's number one.
I don't tell him what questions to ask me.
There are a lot of people around town that have the same question.
Brush my teeth. I'm a good wash in the morning.
I can't confirm or deny.
You know, just keep going a little bit longer here, Mike. Keep going a little bit longer.
Oswego, W249BC Mattydale, W261AC Oswego, WTKWHD2 Bridgeport, ESPN Radio.
Fran Brown this, Fran Brown that.
If you want me to take a lie detector, Brian, I'll take it.
Portal watch this, Portal watch that.
The dog Mama Duke. People say I like that dog.
What are you talking about playing walk-on? Who do you think walked onto the team?
Anybody that thinks this is going to come back is either naive or plain stupid.
All across CNY.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
It's the 315.
Hardy faking, feeds the Grace Jameson. Got it!
He scores!
Here's Brian Higgins.
Oh, beautiful Monday here in CNY. Feeling very springy outside. Glad to have you in after the NFL draft weekend is concluded here in the Q's in Utica. Rome. What's up, Rome? Q Sports Talk. Oh, where are we today, Q Sports Talk? I know where you're at. You're in the chat. You're hanging out. YouTube, the Twitch, QSportsTalk.com. You are in all those places we like you to be here on this Monday. One guest for you today. Always great to have our friend Amanda Kristovich on the show from Front Office Sports. Oh, we got questions. There are two, you know, we're going to get into the draft and the Kyle McCord and the Gadsden and the minutia and the transfer portal, and the lacrosse team's a mess right now. Like, we got a lot to get into on the program today, but of course, your calls, as always, 315-437-7644. But why we got Amanda on this House versus NCAA settlement that this $20 million payment to athletes is contingent on hit a little snaggeroo last week. We'll ask Amanda to explain what's actually going on, and is this whole thing legitimately in jeopardy, or is this a minor speed bump? And she reported on the news yesterday, I think it was, that Kentucky, the athletic department at the University of Kentucky, is preparing to spin off as like an LLC, like to be sort of separate from the university. Me no understand what happening. But if it's happening there, like, that sounds like it will be portending what is to come at many, many places. So we'll ask Amanda about that coming up in a half hour or so. Always interesting to hit the major things in the business of college sports with Amanda Kristovich, because, man, oh, man, like, this is stuff that we couldn't remotely comprehend as of a year or two ago. It's like, what even's going on with all this stuff? So we'll check in with Amanda coming up in a half hour or so. Besides that, today, your calls, talking a lot of NFL draft. Anyone pick Shadur yet? 315-437-7644. We'll get your thoughts throughout the day today. But without further ado, let's kick it off on this Monday.
We start with the Burdick BMW opening drive.
All right, let's begin the drive today with the NFL draft and with the Syracuse portion of the NFL draft, which was pretty good. Not as good as maybe we hoped. It wasn't the volume. The four guys we all thought would get drafted did get drafted. Oronde Gadsden, Kyle McCord, going along with LaQuinn Allen and Fadil Diggs in that order in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and then almost to the end of the 7th round. Fadil was the 4th to final pick in the draft on Saturday out in Green Bay. But I thought they could all go individually, potentially as high as the 4th. The quarterback situation broke weirdly. Certainly around the Shadur Sanders situation, and I don't know how many teams opted with need or value a quarterback this year, so McCord slid a little bit, though I think, slid to what is currently one of the best franchises in the league, his hometown Eagles, Is it the best spot to get on the field? Is a different conversation. So I think they all maybe went a round or two later than what would have been their absolute potential apex of getting picked. But they all got picked, which is excellent. Really cool seeing 4 guys go. All were really excited. The picks in order were as such. Rondé Gadsden went to the Chargers in the 5th round at pick 165. Kyle McCord went 16 picks later to the Eagles near the top of the 6th round. LaQuint Allen went early 7th round at pick 236, and Fadil Diggs went in the 7th at 254. And then there were a bunch of guys in like rapid succession signed to undrafted free agent contracts on Saturday evening. And, you know, Syracuse always gets a bunch of guys in camp and this and that, whatever. But, like, the speed in which these guys were signed gives me a little faith they'll at least have a shot, because they were all gobbled up quickly. Justin Barron and Cinco Clark ending up with the Cowboys. Savion Washington and Marlo Wax with the Chargers. Jackson Meeks Lions. Clarence Lewis Titans this morning. Max Mang tagged on with the Colts. And Tom Callahan, even the long snappers getting in the mix, will be getting a camp invite from the Raiders. So plenty of Cuse guys starting their NFL futures over the weekend. Let's take it in order. We'll start with Rondé here. I think great landing spot here for Gadsden. His head coach, Jim Harbaugh, known lover of the tight end. If you could put 12 tight ends on the field at once, I think that Harbaugh would entertain it. Here is Jim. We'll get you here. Jim welcoming one Rondé Gadsden to the franchise. You always get the phone call. The GM awkwardly calls the player. They all try to figure out who's talking to who. Then Harbaugh gets on the line. Here's Harbaugh with Rondé.
Rondé, Coach Harbaugh here.
What's up, Coach?
Hey! Fired up here.
Yeah.
You happy?
I've been waiting all day for this, man.
I know. We've been sweating out round after round here. And made a big move to go get you. So we love you, and we got a spot where you're going to help us immediately.
For sure.
So we're going to give you our best, which is a tremendous opportunity, and we know you got the license and the ability to give us your best.
For sure, man. I just need to know when I need to get out there, man. I'm trying to learn the playbook. I'm trying to get going.
Yeah, there was a Rondé with Harbaugh. And yeah, we'll get you an iPad? Yeah, iPad. We'll do that. So I'm sure Rondé's probably on his way, if not in Los Angeles already for Chargers stuff. That was Harbaugh is delightfully awkward. That was a delightfully awkward phone conversation. But good for Rondé. Jim said it. Like, hey, we got a spot we're going to use you. You know, that move tight end spot. I'd imagine he could slot right in there with the Chargers. Justin Herbert, good guy to have flinging you the old football. A team that is starting to win again because of Harbaugh. Yeah, I think that's a great spot for Rondé to go. Then Kyle McCord goes just a few picks later, early 6th round to the Eagles. And, you know, I was saying last week, like the Rams were standing out to me as a great landing spot for McCord, because you've got great coaching, great organization, and a Hall of Fame aging quarterback, right, in Matt Stafford, that is going to need to be replaced here sometime in the next few years. But didn't go there. Who did the Rams draft at quarterback? Rams draft quarterback. They must have drafted somebody. There was the word that they were going to take Jackson Dart in the 1st round. Did they take anybody? But the Giants traded up in front of him, and now McCord ends up going to the Eagles. The good and bad. The Eagles have like a $250 million quarterback on their roster in Jalen Hurts, who incidentally won the Super Bowl the last time they played the Super Bowl. So, like, they've got a guy. There is not an immediate route to playing time if you are Kyle McCord with the Eagles. But you're with the Eagles, who are one of, if not the best run organization in the National Football League right now, right? Plus, Jalen Hurts has a habit of getting hurt and missing like a game or a half a game or 2 games every year. Like, he gets knocked around a lot. There's a scenario here where McCord could find himself later this year. I don't know if he's going to. Tanner McKee's there, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's there. There's other guys he's going to have to beat out. Maybe next year. Like, there's a scenario that's the game, or maybe McCord gets a week 18 game with the Eagles have wrapped up the NFC East because the Giants stink and Dak and who knows what. There's a chance here to get on the field playing with the best roster in the league. And the funny thing about the backup quarterback spot is, man, if you prove yourself like once, twice, for a drive, a quarter, a game in the NFL at that quarterback spot, man, that can keep you around the league for a while. If you can be what Kyle is, studious on the whiteboard, first in, last out kind of guy, good guy to have in the room in the NFL parlance, in the football parlance. If he goes out and just shows it just a little bit, preseason, week 18, when Hurts misses a half, whatever, man, that can lock you in the league for a long time. Not guaranteeing you a starting job or anything like that. Or if you can go out and have that Matt Flynn game. Remember when Matt Flynn did that for the Packers? It's got to be close to 20 years ago now. And then magically ended up with, was that the Russell Wilson draft? Maybe 15 years ago. Magically ended up with a lot of money from the Seahawks and then never was the starter. But he got to keep all the money, like the checks cashed. Not a bad situation if you're McCord. Here's McCord being greeted to the Eagles by Howie Roseman, their GM, and Nick Sirianni.
Kyle.
Hey, how are you?
It's Howie Roseman from the Eagles.
How are you doing?
I think we have an obligation each year to take a St. Joe's prep kid. So, unfortunately, you're going to be the selection this year. How do you feel about that?
I'm fired up, man. I'm excited.
Yeah. We're going to pick you right here, man. I know you've been sitting for a long time. We're fired up to have you. I'm going to put Coach Sirianni on the phone. We're going to put the pick through right now. Congratulations. Can't wait to see you.
Thank you.
Hey, Kyle. How you doing? Coach Sirianni.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, I'm doing well. I've been following your career for a while and being a local guy, so excited to get you.
Yes, sir. I can't wait. It's going to be a good deal. I'm excited, man.
Yeah, Kyle, very happy. He's from, the Eagles are the closest NFL team to where he's from. He grew up a Jets fan, but he's, from that area down there in Jersey. And, yeah, he gets to go hang out in Philly now.
Eagles Nation, what's up? It's Kyle McCord. I'm excited to be back home, excited to be back in the city playing for the Birds, man. It's a dream come true, so can't wait to get to work. Can't wait to see you guys in the link. Go Birds.
All right, so there goes McCord to the Eagles. We're going to have to root for the Eagles again if somehow Kyle gets that job. We already did the whole McNabb thing. We were able to wean ourselves off of that. It's no good as a Giants fan to have to feel good about the Eagles, but we will root for Kyle. Hopefully he'll get a shot somewhere to prove himself, because a lot of people like to make the Nassib comparison, right? Because he was the most recent Syracuse guy to get drafted. He went to, now flashback with me, people, he went to what was at the time a successful Giants franchise. Yeah, they were a year removed from the Super Bowl when Ryan Nassib went there. Wow, yeah. The Giants used to win football games. I don't know if anyone recalls this, but yeah. But he went and backed up a guy that literally never missed a play. He didn't miss a start. He didn't miss a series. He didn't miss anything. Nassib was with the Giants backup to Eli Manning for 4 years. He never got to play football. Then by the time he became a free agent, he had hurt his shoulder, elbow, shoulder, something. Couldn't throw the ball right, and that was, signed with the Saints for a half cup of coffee, and that was that. Now, I think McCord is a better player than Nassib for one. I think he's got a significantly better chance of hanging long-term in the NFL. But, man, if you're in a position like that, if you're McCord, you're a sixth-round draft pick, which puts low odds on you to make it long-term in the league. Don't tell Tom Brady that. Yeah, we get it. Sixth-round pick, 199, blah, blah, blah. But he's got a chance here with a good organization that if he can stick for just a minute, there's a legitimate chance to turn this into a long-term thing with the league. And then once you get in the door at that quarterback spot, and if you can prove yourself reliable, he'll have a chance to hang out for a long time. He'll have a chance to hang out for a long time. LaQuinn Allen to the Jags in the 7th. Hey, man, there was talk the Jags were going to take Ashton Genty in the first round. They're clearly not satisfied with Travis Etienne. New coaching staff. They ended up trading up for Travis Hunter instead of taking Genty in the first round. But they're new offensive system. They're in the market for a running back. He'll have a shot. He'll have a shot to do something. Then we'll see what's going on with Fadil Diggs. He's with the Saints. If he can get to the passer a little bit, that'll keep you in the league. So good for them. We'll see if any of the undrafted guys can hang on. I saw that Jackson Meeks got 200 large guaranteed to go sign with the Lions. Nice work if you can get it, Jackson. There we are. But I think McCord, it's not the most ideal spot because he doesn't have an immediate route to playing time, right, because of Jalen Hurts. But, look at Cleveland's just picking guys off trees. They don't know what's going on. My Giants, hopefully Jackson Dart's the guy, but you don't necessarily want to be drafted by the Giants. They're not exactly a picture of stability right now. McCord's favorite team, the Jets, apparently had eyes on him at some point. But, come on. What are the odds of a quarterback drafted by the Jets turn it into something good? I'd say the Rams, the Niners, the Vikings, the Bengals, teams that have a really stable quarterback system in place, maybe would have been more ideal. But the Eagles is a pretty solid spot to land just because of the stability of their organization. You at least know that organizationally people will be in place. And because of that, maybe at some point you get a shot to show a little something and at least showcase yourself to the rest of the league. I think all things considered, decent spot for McCord. Not perfect, but, way better than being the 89th quarterback selected by the Browns in the last 25 years that have all turned out to be terrible. Hello, Shadur Sanders. Maybe you'll be the one to turn it around this year. All right, that's our Burdick BMW opening drive for today. A little bit of NFL draft for you here on a Monday. We'll hit more of the Bills and the Giants as we get later on, more Q's football talk as well. But with that, let's get a check on the old markets as we start off the week. We got our guy Bill from Lee Baldwin. All right, Bill, how'd this Monday do for you?
We opened in the red and finished in the green with the Dow up 114 points. As we recall, last week, Monday, we were down over 1,000 points, and that was it for the sell-off as we screamed higher the rest of the week, closing up 2,000 points in the Dow off the lows. So far, so good the last week. In the diamonds today, we're going to go with a Dow component Boeing, which has been a dog for a number of years now, but it was up over 2% today on an upgrade and good earnings last week. So hopefully they're getting past their issues they had last year with doors coming off planes, not necessarily a great thing for a plane company. And then on the downside, we had chipmaker NVIDIA modestly lower today as China is working on their own AI chip, but they're pretty far behind, at least for now. And overall, good day.
All right, we like that. Doors staying on planes, always a good day when it comes to the market. Thank you, Bill. There he is, Bill from Lee Baldwin with all of the diamonds. None of the dogs. Check him out as always, LeeBaldwin.com, LeeBaldwin.com. Phones open next, 315-437-7644. Amanda Kristovich on the always fascinating business of college sports coming up in about 15 minutes. We'll step aside for a few. Back at it on this gorgeous Monday in Central New York after this on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. What is up, chat? I'd say Belichick, with the hole in his sweatshirt, is about as on brand as a human has ever been in life. Their ceilings did collapse, Jen, but their doors stayed on. Cisco's a Jet now, isn't he, Telemachus? I think Cisco signed with the Jets. Fix the doors. Ceilings? We'll get to that next quarter. That'll be a Q3 issue. Remember that time Andre just called up the show, whenever that was? Was that when LeQuint was going through all his crap? I think that's when that was. Look, it's Paulie. Thank you, Paulie. Paulie looks like he has something.
Sausage parm for dinner tonight.
You're going full Beardsley?
Yeah.
You're parming the sausage?
Probably some whole grain pasta, too. I'll probably have some pasta.
I had some sausage and peppers last week. I've got some chicken actively in the crock pot, crocking away at the moment.
Nice.
It's got a little sun-dried tomatoes in there. Little roasted red peppers. Seasonings. Kevin says to eat ham. Cheer your gloomy mood.
I'm in a cheery mood.
Yeah, but think of the mood you were in when you had ham. Doctors could start you could get prescription ham.
Shoot it right into my veins.
What do you got there? It's just my prescription. That should be a Saturday Night Live bit. It's my prescription ham.
Ham IV of just ham juice.
Yeah, you don't need Prozac. You need prescription ham. They're late filling my prescription of ham. Now angry and hungry.
I will see you at department head.
Oh, yes.
Tomorrow morning.
That is exciting news. It is early.
I'm going to go mow my lawn.
Oh, my lawn needs mowing, and I just never did.
Mow my lawn and walk my dog.
Mm-hmm.
Adulting.
Have Indy walk with you while you mow the lawn.
She tries to attack the lawnmower.
That's a problem. That's the problem. You can't have that. Oh, I needed to mow it the last couple days, but I just never got around to it or had time. And then it's I don't know. And then the weather later in the week started to look crappy. I don't know when I'm going to get it in. Other than a time where it's going to be obnoxiously long. Paulie, go mow my lawn too. Yeah. When over-the-counter ham isn't doing the job, try prescription ham. Ask your doctor, please consume safely. These are paid actors in our commercial. The side effects of prescription ham are.
Across central New York, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, rolling along here on this beautiful Central New York Monday. And Amanda Kristovich coming up at about 10. Talk about this house settlement that they're going to settle it sometime, right? And then they'll pay the players the money? Or are they just going to be dumb and not settle it and then cost everyone billions of dollars? You never know with the parties involved in this one. I want to ask Amanda about Kentucky spinning off their athletic department to an LLC, too. I need her to business us up on what all of that means. Anyway, phone lines are open, 315-437-7644. We got Scooter leading us off today on a Monday. What's up, Scoot?
Well, your horse, Turner was in the 315 special, drew the eight position.
I saw a fantastic spot, Scoot. Fantastic spot.
Yeah. You know, it's a lot better than Bob Bamford's horse. Citizen Bull, he drew the one hole. He's going to have to run like his hair's on fire just to get positions. That helps out. And unfortunately, you know, for the horse, there was a horse that won the Florida Derby I thought could be a contender. And the horse, after his last workout, hurt his leg. It was called 10-Pin Street. And so that horse had to be scratched, too. So two of the could be horses that could compete against journalism. One's not in the race, and the other one drew out the one hole. It's good luck. I mean, if you win for the one hole, yeah, the horse is a superstar. What are you going to do? And that's looking pretty good. And there's other horses that are going to be pretty good too. But you know, journalism at least escaped the worst where you want to be in the Derby. And with 20 horses, then you just hope racing luck is on your side.
Yeah, the only problem, right, is he's the betting favorite, which has not historically gone well in the run for the Roses.
Well, Fortune this last year, remember, doesn't like horses. He wants to be on the lead by himself, and I knew he wasn't going to be, and that's why we liked the Japanese horse Forever Young, and you remember what happened coming down the stretch in that race.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny part is that horse has won $20 million races, and the horse that won last year, Mystic Dan, hasn't won a race since then. In fact, he finished last in the Belmont. The other 315 horse, Torpedo Ann, is running on Friday, and I got to check if your golf horse, Carl Spangler's running sometime this week because he runs a lot of stakes races. If not, you're definitely going to see him up in Saratoga.
Okay.
Because that's his kind of like that. You know, you're talking about backup quarterbacks in the NFL, and I grew up with the Dan Fouts era, the San Diego Chargers, where basically Dan Fouts had to play every play.
Right.
And there was a backup quarterback called Ed Luther. And that's the guy I wanted to be, because when Dan Fouts is in the whirlpool getting hit on Mondays, he's out on the beach in San Diego, and enjoying the weather. And the USFL came along, and Jacksonville signed him to $1 million contract. So I went there until USFL folded, and he came back, and Fouts, I think, either got hurt or he retired, and then he ended up actually starting for the Chargers. But that was a perfect backup, don't get hit. Your day off, you're on the beach. Perfect as far as the backup quarterback goes.
Like Todd Philcox had that gig for like a decade. I mean, it's a hell of a job if you can get it.
It is, and Todd, it's funny because you remember Billy Sharr was supposed to be the quarterback. Remember, it's right after McPherson, and Philcox actually played base. He started. It's almost like a Danny Shays thing. He only started 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. And you're right. It's a backup quarterback, and it was interesting. I mean, he actually lasted in the NFL for a while as long as he wanted to get back. Of course, Danny, 18 years, maybe 19.
Yeah, I mean, he was. It's the beautiful thing of being that tall, right? Is you get to hang in the league for. I think Danny played 18 years, but Philcox must have been. He must have been a decade in the NFL if it was a day.
Yeah.
I mean, he was there forever. And I think a lot was with the Chargers, if memory is. At least some of it was with the Chargers, if the memory is serving right. What do we got here? Bengals, Browns, Bengals, Dolphins, Bucks, Jags, Chargers, Patriots. Yeah, he was in the league for a solid decade. So you'll take that gig. Yeah, not a bad paycheck if you can pull it off.
And he probably left with all his parts not being hurt, right? I mean, how many games? I remember he started one game because I remember seeing him on TV, and I watched the game because he actually played.
Yeah,
I mean,
five careers. He was in the NFL a decade. He got into 15 games and started 5 of them. It's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a thing.
It's a good thing, and I assume he qualified for his pension. Right? I don't know how many years you got to be in the NFL for your pension.
Yeah, so, I think it's like 4. I mean, so yeah, I think he qualified easily.
But let me ask you a question. And two quick things. I joked about you guys talked about something about Kentucky breaking off. I was joking for a while, but why not make sports just a club sport, and so we don't have to worry about players going to school, and we don't have to worry about the payments and stuff, because as long as you're part of the university, so be it. And because it's going to get worse. I mean, people are going to break off, like you said. Arkansas is actually going after the quarterback's brother from Tennessee for breach of contract or something.
Their collective is basically, hey, we're going to need that back because you were never actually, you were here for 2 months as a kid out of high school and never did anything.
Well, I don't understand. There used to be a semi-pro team called the Syracuse Express. They used to play out in Onondaga Park. Can you tell me the difference now in college football than a semi-pro team now, even basketball or anything? So let's not kid ourselves. If they want to represent the university, so be it. Yeah, but the day of the student athlete, I think that part in the university has gone by the wayside. I don't. They want, like I said, they want to pay somebody to play and represent the university, so be it. And that's what's going to end up being. They're all going to be employees of the college, right? I assume that's what the 20 mil is all about.
Well, that's what I think that's what I'm intrigued to ask Amanda about this. Like, by spinning the athletic department off in some way, is that going to make them technically not employees of the college, but employees of something else? Like, this has got to be an intermediate step to something, and that I have no clue on. So we'll be finding that out from her, because I'm sure she'll be able to fill us in.
Now, Johnny Manziel, I thought had a better year than Sanders in college.
Of course he did. He won the Heisman. He was a dominant college player.
Yeah, so his skill sets didn't really go good for pro football. And that's what I laughed about. All these pundits just going nuts because Sanders wasn't drafted. I mean, until the fifth round, it's like, hey, Manziel was a better quarterback in college. I think had more skill sets than Sanders does. And so why would you take a guy in the first round that basically the skill sets don't warrant to be a first round pick?
Yeah, I mean Johnny, and thanks for the call, Scooter, was like he was he ran for like 1,200 yards the year in the Heisman and threw for 3,000 or something. I mean, he put up crazy numbers and obviously was a total bust in the league. Still think Shedeur has a shot, but it's just, if you're not A+ talented, like, not that Shedur's not talented, and there's some crap you got to deal with. Why do you want to deal with the crap if you're an NFL team? You deal with the crap for the top of the draft kind of guys. But if it's not a guy you think is a top of the draft kind of guy, and then there's a little crap, even if it's not like Shedeur, it's not legal issues. It's not his crap is not any like actual real life serious crap like some of these guys have. It's just like, do you want to be generally annoyed by it? But I don't know. We'll see how he does out there because it's Cleveland. Like, if you're a quarterback in Cleveland, you will eventually start football games. That is just the way it historically has gone for the Browns. All right, let's take a break. We'll get to Amanda Kristovich next. Front Office Sports. Lots to get into in the current business of college sports. We'll do that with Amanda next. It's Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Oh, chat. Antonio Gates, Oregon excuse? Yeah, I mean, Gates was... Yeah. I don't know if anyone knows this. Antonio Gates played basketball. Yeah, that's why I have to, like, Cleveland, just take a lot of quarterbacks. Just hope somebody sticks. I love the jerseys that have all the names going back to, like, Tim Couch. Kent State. Yeah, I mean, Antonio Gates, was obviously an all-timer, but I think Gadsden, and that's why, I get it, it's the call from the head coach. What else is he going to say? The fact that they traded up for him, I get it's the fifth round, and that the head coach is like, hey, man, we got a very specific role in mind for you. I think that's very intriguing for Rondé. Man, I mean, the Browns, Tim Couch never had a shot. The Browns were just such a mess then. I think he took them to the playoffs once, I want to say. Could be wrong on that. Where's Derek Anderson at? Better. I mean, Antonio Gates is a better all-time player than Ben Coates. But Ben Coates in the 90s, man, he was doing unprecedented stuff with Bledsoe. I'll take Gates, but Ben Coates was a little bit ahead of his time. I also have more Coates than I have Gates. I have 2 Gates, but I have more than 2 Coates. But, man, their O-lines were so bad, Tim Couch got the living crap beat out of him. That guy could sling it in college now at Kentucky. They were running that Mouse Davis fling it all over the place offense. That was early Leach, wasn't it? Wasn't he the OC? Wasn't Mike Leach the OC? Yeah, they're closing on 40 years of Kursich right now. Yeah, I think Leach was the offensive coordinator for those teams, and then he got the Texas Tech job off that. I feel reasonably correct about that without looking it up. Oh, yeah. Was he already at Oklahoma? That's a good question. That's right. The year they won the title, right? Mike Leach. Kentucky OC 97, 98, then Oklahoma 99. So, yeah, Couch would have been there for a minute, I think. Tim Couch. Kentucky 96 through 98. Yeah, so, yeah. Well, they turned Tim Couch to the number one pick of the draft, so there's that. I guess they didn't win the title at Oklahoma. That was the year before Oklahoma won the title. I saw that the other day, Dilemma-Cuse. Wild. Oh, man.
All across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
Oh, this is good music for our next guest because we always have to figure out some legal squabbles when we have Amanda Kristovich of Front Office Sports on. Is man, the business of college sports, it doesn't get less confusing by the day. That is a fact. So we got a couple of big items to talk about with Amanda today. It's always great to chat, Amanda. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love the theme music.
Yes,
it's perfect, as you said.
I wish I could say I did that intentionally, but it's in the rotation. But it knew. The computer always knows. It's AI or something. It's taking over. All right, this house settlement thing. I feel I've asked you about this like 37 times by now. What happened last week? What did the judge tell them? From my read of this was like, hey, we met 2 weeks ago. I asked you to do something and you didn't listen to me. Is that the general gist of what the judge told everybody last week?
I think that's an excellent representation of what happened several days ago. Yes. So the only prevailing issue in the House settlement at this point, according to the judge, is that roster limits issue, which, just quick refresher, is the issue saying or that was created by axing scholarship limits. So, if you can afford to pay a full scholarship for every single player in your athletic department, you're now allowed to do so, but imposing roster limits in their place. And as a result of that, hundreds of athletes around the country have started reporting, current athletes and high school athletes who have received offers to play, in Division I schools everywhere, have started to find out that their roster spot has been cut preemptively, in anticipation of this settlement and the new rules taking place. So that seems to be the only issue that Judge Wilkin is still interested in fixing that comes out of the settlement. He basically endorsed grandfathering all of those athletes who, have already received roster spots or already on teams, like just letting them stay there and imposing these new limits in the future. And the parties kind of came back, the NCAA came back and said, it's too difficult, we don't want to do that. And she basically said, okay, well, if you don't, then I'm not approving the settlement. So she gave them 14 days to figure out how to do that. That's where we're at right now.
And the 14 days will expire, mid next week? And,
yes.
Obviously, we talk about this settlement because of the $20 million the schools will get to use and pay the players. That's obviously the standout part of this. And this is a thing, right? If she doesn't agree to all of what they're doing, then none of what they want to do gets to happen, at least immediately, right? All of this, she's threatening to send the thing to trial, which, as we saw, the original terms of the trial would bankrupt everybody. So this is, it feels like everyone's just playing with fire right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there would have been a possibility for different portions of the settlement to be approved, but the NCAA basically said, we're not going to agree to that. Like, it's either a package deal or nothing at all. And so, either the entire settlement gets approved or none of it, as you said. So 100%. I think, everyone is playing with fire here. The judge wants to retire. This is like the last case he has. The plaintiff's attorneys, obviously, yes, they have millions in attorney's fees that are on the line for them, but they also, want to, I do genuinely believe that from their perspective, this settlement is going to give revenue sharing to players who wouldn't have had it otherwise. And if you go to trial, there's at least a year's worth of players who won't get it, right? Yeah. So that's, what they have to lose. And then, of course, the NCAA and power conferences risk, like $12 billion in damages if they go to trial and then ultimately they lose. So, and not to mention losing goodwill with Congress, which is a separate but related issue. So it's definitely playing with fire, but I don't see why this issue can't be resolved. And frankly, I'm surprised it wasn't resolved in the first place.
Yeah, it sounds to me like Judge Wilkin has been rather clear on this point going back like almost a year now, right? Or close to a year. That, like, do you think the NCAA, have people been working on this idea and now they just got to be like, all right, we'll listen to you now? Or were they just so confident they were going to be able to do whatever they wanted that they actually have to figure out this whole plan in a week?
I think they were confident that roster limits as they were being imposed in the settlement weren't violating any laws. And to that extent, I think they're correct. But what they didn't consider, which is what the judge ultimately is using as her reasoning here, is saying you can't harm members of the class in a settlement. Mm-hmm. So there are players who are members of this class who would be harmed by the settlement because they would lose their roster spots, right? So she's basically saying, roster limits in and of themselves are fine. You want to impose them in the future, that's okay. But you can't take away spots that have already been offered to players. So they need to be sort of phased in through a period of a couple years. And that is what she really hammered home, I guess on April 7th, so 3 weeks ago. And, that was the solution that she seemed to endorse, as did many of the objectors. And the NCAA just kind of came back and said, you know what, it's too difficult. And people are sort of scoffing at that. But honestly, they got preliminary approval after refusing to make changes that Judge Wilkin suggested in the first place. So I'm actually at this point, I wonder how much of it is the judge's conditioning of the NCAA just being able to get away with, the whatever and not understanding the ability that the judge has to really, or the willingness that she has to not approve the settlement, if that makes sense. Because several months ago, she made suggestions, they ignored them, and she gave it the preliminary stamp.
Okay, I kind of like, hey, this is literally, I'm retiring. This is my last try. Don't mess with me. I kind of like that vibe from it. So what's the deadline? The deadline's what, Wednesday or Thursday next week? What do we think they're going to do it this time? Is this going to have another round of back and forth? What's your best guess of what happens next week?
I don't see any more round of back and forth. Either they present a solution that satisfies her request or they don't. And if they don't, they're going to trial. So if I'm the NCAA and the power conferences, I am working to ensure that exactly what the judge wants on this roster limits issue is implemented, because it's a small price to pay for the rest of the settlement, literally, right? Yeah. So I just cannot see a world in which they don't offer a solution to her, because, she said, what's she going to do? Go back on her word? She said in writing that she's not going to approve the settlement unless they fix this.
All right, let's follow the other path just for a second, Amanda, because the NCAA is very good at avoiding the logical solution, as we know. Let's say they screw it up, and the judge says, "Okay, you're bad at listening. We're going to trial." How massive of a disaster is that for all involved on the NCAA side of things if that happens?
I think the measure of the disaster is really, well, there's two things. Obviously, we've talked about the $12 billion, the bankrupting of from the damages. Like, yes, they could definitely go bankrupt, but that's if they lose at trial, right? But like, even going to trial, another year without revenue sharing puts them in a position where schools have started to prepare for revenue sharing. So is the NCAA really going to say, no, you're not allowed to do this until we lose at trial? I think that would be, they've lost the ability to prevent paying players at this point. The other issue is the goodwill with Congress. Like, they're counting on this settlement to be a document that they can bring to Capitol Hill and say, codify this settlement because this is proof that we've tried. It's proof we've changed, right? And in return for us changing, you are going to give us the protections so that we don't get sued in the future and that we can control what is left of amateurism and protect it. And potentially even, frankly, reverse some of the athletes' rights gains that have been made. But they can't do that without the settlement because this is the only proof that they have that they've made substantial improvements. So they'd be put in, from like a PR standpoint, a very difficult position. There are state laws that have been passed that have said revenue sharing is going to be legal in our state, aka the NCAA can't enforce a prohibition. It's just going to be a very complicated and sticky situation, even before trial and even if they ultimately win.
And as we know, like every football and basketball team in the country has already spent that money, at least in their heads, for this upcoming year. So that would be a...
They've signed contracts.
Yeah, like it would be a massive mess, which could be fascinating in its own way, but we'll see how it goes with that. All right, we got Amanda Kristovich, Front Office Sports, with us. Let's play this forward here a little bit with this Kentucky story you wrote about today over the weekend. What's going on here? Kentucky says they're going to spin their athletic department off as an LLC. What does this mean, and how does this tie into the greater world of what we've got going on right now?
It was a really interesting move, and one that, logically made a lot of sense the more I kind of dug into it. I'm certainly not an expert in tax law, but like the number one reason that everyone always says that athletic departments want to be nonprofits is so that they don't, they're tax exempt, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have to pay taxes on the millions of dollars that they earn in revenue, or at least, the rich schools earn in revenue. And that's good for the business model, and it's good for the quote-unquote educational mission, and it's good for, the charade of amateurism. Let's just say it, right? Kentucky has decided that, especially with revenue sharing potentially on the horizon, it is easier for them to spin off their athletic department into an LLC, which the entity that they're creating is still, from a tax perspective, like part of the university, but they're trying to spin off those extra revenues that they're generating from the university's ultimate liability. And then there's this idea that, like, if they do end up paying players, there's going to be tax write-offs that they would get. So it really wouldn't be, like, so bad for them. That's kind of like the weeds of it. But I think from a big picture perspective, what was striking to me was that you are literally changing the very foundation of nonprofit versus for-profit business model, and in the same breath, literally admitting that you can still operate a college athletic department the same way you always have, from the perspective of college athletes who are also students will be playing sports for you and going to class and making money. Isn't that revolutionary? Because that's what the NCAA said was impossible for the last 100 years.
Okay, so in this scenario, when the athletes start getting paid by the university, I guess, does that mean they're not technically? I mean, you said it's part of the university. Like, what are their paychecks going to say? Like Kentucky LLC, University of Kentucky. Like, how does that work? I guess that's what the maneuvering here that's being done right now.
Right. So I believe the entity would be called Champions Blue. So they would be getting their checks from Champions Blue LLC. I don't think that this is that unprecedented. Again, I'm not a tax expert, but like in their press release, Kentucky basically said, hey, like we have 2 community-based hospitals that we own and operate, but therefore they're LLCs, like they're not nonprofits, part of the university. And so it's kind of like the same idea that they're under our umbrella, but they're kind of, if you're a nurse at that hospital, I don't think you're getting a paycheck from the University of Kentucky. You're getting it from the LLC or the for-profit entity that owns the hospital. So obviously not the same thing, but kind of like a similar concept.
All right, so I guess the real follow-up to all of this is, Kentucky can't be the only genius in the room, right? Like how assuming this is the way forward, how long till every major, athletic department in the country is this? Or is there a reason it makes sense for Kentucky but not others?
I think the number one thing that I'm wondering about is like the state laws and regulations in Kentucky versus other states. Like with revenue sharing, a lot of the schools are running into issues with the way that their state laws are written because all of this money is being funded through public universities, which are controlled by state boards of regents and state legislatures. So like sometimes there's some complications with that. So like, for example, I believe it was Boise State will be paying their revenue sharing dollars out of their foundation versus the athletic department. But don't quote me on that. It could be somebody else. So I think just like the state laws governing state employees and state government employees and university employees could play a role there. And then obviously, like if you're an athletic department that only brings in $10 million or $20 million, this may not be worth it for you. Obviously, Kentucky is bringing in over 200.
All right, and the last thought here on this, Amanda, before we let you go. For our alma mater specifically, you, Georgetown, me, Syracuse, and our listeners obviously here consider Syracuse more than not private schools. Like, what is it different for private schools than you mentioned Kentucky, a public school, or would it be the same general, idea behind it?
I think you wouldn't run into those state law issues necessarily, right? But I actually think Syracuse and Georgetown are in very different boats because Syracuse, is a power conference football program, or at least in name. I won't take any more shots beyond that.
Shots at the ACC. Fired.
Whereas Georgetown, is basketball only. I mean, they play FCS football. So the revenue streams are quite different, and the numbers are quite different. Georgetown brings in a lot less. So, but as you raise a good point, as a private university, you have to look at any implications of whether or not state laws apply to you, but obviously they may not. You receive federal funding, so you're still subject to things like Title IX, so that could play a role. Maybe there's a Title IX implication here that Kentucky conveniently left out. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'll have to get back to you on that. But, I think it's really going to be a case-by-case basis, but so long as they implement this and the sky doesn't fall, I'm sure other schools are at least going to be looking at it if they haven't already.
All right. Well, crazy times, Amanda. I feel I say that every time I talk to you about this stuff, but every month something else weird happens, and the world keeps on spinning. All right. So thanks as always coming on. We'll see what happens next time, but always good to chat.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much.
All right, there she is, Amanda Kristovich. Check out all of her stuff on Front Office Sports. She wrote today about this Kentucky LLC situation, which, these things don't just happen, in ones. Like if one school does it and it makes sense, then look for that to be the next fad of how these schools figure out how to best pay the players going forward, which is the transition that everybody is making right now. All right, always great to have Amanda on here in this hour, brought to you by William Matart. We'll take a break. Phone lines open rest of the afternoon, 315-437-7644. Join in for ESPN 44. Back next, Q Sports Talk, ESPN Radio. That she is, Kev. 17 months, Pastor Tim. Get it. Not really, Tronic. I mean, they're an SEC school with lots of money that is getting ready to pay their basketball team like $19 million or something this year. That I think I'd say like they still got all the SEC football money, and they've been a good football team here for a minute. Just not, it's not the foot they generally put forward. Oh, I clicked on that, Jen. I never finished reading it. I lost track of that. Yeah, if I know anything about these universities and whatever they're doing, they're very, very good at figuring out how to get out of paying taxes. It's a hell of a question, Tim. Let's say you better hope the answer is Syracuse. Donovan Brown. Wow. Who else forgot that Donovan Brown existed? Who else forgot that Donovan Brown existed? Remember when Donovan Brown, like 2 years ago, was good for a week and a half? Wow. Donovan Brown. Like actually on the hot seat bowling ball? No. But like he's on the Syracuse fans are, grumbling seat. But, in the yeah, there's a leak in the seat. It's not going great. It's not going terribly, but it's not going great. That interview was so Gary. Oh, red seat's way hotter just because of the Sporty's coaching and everything going on there. The money involved. Like it feels like Red's entering a do or die year here. Like I just don't. Like, they're not firing Gary soon.
All across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
That it is. Here we are. What a Monday. What a Monday. Spring. Throw at 543-776-44 if you'd like to join in. Phone lines open the rest of the way here this Monday. Fascinating as always when we chat with Amanda Kristovich about all that stuff. That's just like, I mean, Greek to me on some of it, but like college sports is always, I mean, always for the last several decades been a serious big money place. But man, there have been more changes going on in college sports on that financial level of things on a monthly basis recently than there were in like decades preceding it. It's wild what's going on right now for sure. A little more on the NFL draft while thinking about it. Our guy Dane Brugler of The Athletic did his draft rankings, and he ranked the Giants number 5. Yeah, take that. Win the offseason. The Bills were ranked 23rd. Ooh. I like the Giants draft. I'm curious about the quarterback. I don't know if any of the guys are going to be the right answer that were available there for the Giants. Cam Ward obviously going 1 overall. Got to see him up close in person when he was up here in the Dome and had a big game. Kyle McCord had a bigger game. Cam threw for 350 and 2 touchdowns, so he was still impressive in that game. But Jackson Dart, opinions on him mixed, as they kind of were for everybody else in the draft. And, the Giants brass better have been right. Cam Scatabo, I like that. He's pretty good. That guy's good. What a college football playoff game he had. He almost single-handedly beat Texas there in the college football playoffs back in the quarterfinals. So will be very interesting to see how that comes together for the Giants, if they can do something this season. The Bills draft was more matter of fact. Brandon Beane was getting a little mad at people on the morning radio in Buffalo because people were a little pissy that he didn't pick a wide receiver before the 7th round. He then pointed out the fact that the Bills led the NFL in scoring points last year. So maybe defense was a larger priority in the draft. I think for the most part, both teams hit positions of need. The Giants just had better draft picks, which tends to lead to higher grades. The Bills had worse draft picks because they're better at football, which I've heard is also useful. I will take a break. Hour 2 next. 315-437-7644. Portal Watch. We haven't forgotten you, Portal Watch. Fran. Where are you keeping those linemen, Fran? Do you have like 15 offensive linemen in your office right now? Questions abound. We're back after this. Hour 2 when we come back here on a Monday. Give a ring. 315-437-7644. Roll along after this on Q Sports Talk at ESPN Radio.
The Sports Show with Cody Mack.
The Bills, they had a good...
I hope Gary has. I mean, I have heated seats in my Honda. I hope Gary's got heated seats in the Jeep. Yeah, Scatabo runs real hard. Think put him together with Tracy and you got yourself a nice little combo. That might add up to being still worse than Saquon, but that's okay. That is, I mean, I'd say it's possible, Kev. Like he's got to win the backup job, but like maybe in year 2, if he gets to be the backup, like Hurts will miss a game a year. Like he gets knocked around. Like if you're you're not beating out Hurts. He's got a $250 million contract, but like, can you play a little bit? Can you show the preseason? Can you get into a late season game when Hurts is banged up or the Eagles have clinched something? And you just got to give the league a little taste that you know what you're doing at that quarterback spot, and you can be there forever. That's the last thing I saw San Diego Q's, the on 3 crystal balls. What do I need to look up? McAllister mentioned some that lineman from North Carolina that's on campus. What was his name? I lost his name. Higgins. There's a throwback. Yeah, Rice. Rice, who definitely has a name. Zach. His name is Zach. Yeah, he's a former 5-star, but he's basically never played. Yeah, that's my hope, Kev. Like, move on and get a shot. Or, heck, if you can somehow lock in and be a team's, like, even if you never start or just start sparingly, if you can just prove you can be around the league and be a backup, those guys kick around forever if you get in the trusted backup pile. Yeah, they crystal balled him, but the crystal ball percentage of confidence was 60%. Like, what's the point of the crystal ball if you're 60% confident in it? Yes, he's definitely, Jonte Cook is definitely either coming or not coming. John Higgins, 4th and 1 touchdown we're on in the Super Bowl against the Raiders. Yeah, man, like the Steve DeBerg pile. Like, yeah, sure, you want to be a starter in the league. But the Steve DeBerg pile is a great pile to be in, man. Like, that's a really good career. Man. We're going to have tomorrow, I think, bowling ball. One of our Notre Dame friends, Sean Stiers, who does some football stuff with him on the show. Yes, Tim Higgins. Texas forever. I always just remember him from the old NFL Films highlight stuff. That's what I'm saying, T-Takes. Like, Matt Flynn got... How much money did Matt Flynn make off that one freaking game? Matt Flynn career earnings. Matt Flynn made $19 million. Basically never played. Jay Schrader. Like, I think with, as good as McCord is, his level, all that stuff, I think he's got a shot for that. Live, Kev? I mean, no, like, that Riggins Super Bowl was like 82 or 83. I was like, 1.
Every day and do it really half-assed. That's the American way.
I hope it's happy hour.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
My memory of Riggins' 1970s Jets is low.
This is a great day. A really great day.
All across CNY, it's the 315 with Brian Higgins. Halfway home, we drive into the second hour with Burdick BMW.
That we do. Hour 2 upon us. Phone lines open rest of the show. 315-437-7644. Still lots to get into here on this Monday. The Lax team took it on the chin on Saturday. Not in the volume of loss, just a 2-goal loss to Carolina. But, oh, man, that was a big game. That game puts them, that's going to make them a little nervous on Selection Sunday if they don't go beat Notre Dame for the second time this season in the ACC tournament semis this Friday, 5 o'clock. Down in Charlotte. Of course, you'll hear that game over on TK with Tim and Kyle starting at 4:30 on Friday from the ACC tournament. The Orange dropped from potentially being the 1 seed in the tournament to being the 4 seed in the span of an afternoon. Thus is life in ACC lacrosse. What have we done so far? We talked to Amanda Kristovich of Front Office Sports, tried to make heads or tails yet again of this House versus NCAA settlement, of what Kentucky's doing, spinning off their athletic department as an LLC and how it may affect Syracuse going forward. And we looked back at the Orange players, led by Aronde Gadsden and Kyle McCord, in the NFL draft, with those two being joined by 7th-round picks in LaQuinn Allen and Fadil Diggs. With that, we arrive at hour 2, and man, this is the farthest we've gone without doing this in like a month and a half. This is the deepest into the show I think we've gotten without doing this in closing on 6 weeks now.
The portal is open.
Prepare ship for ludicrous speed.
Players on the move.
Scotty, beam us up fast.
Where are they going?
To infinity and beyond.
It's another edition of Portal Watch.
Ludicrous speed. Go!
All right. Well, the portals are both closed for entrance now in football and basketball. They're not closed for exit. Remember last Friday we talked about, the big question last Friday, were any of the Orange quarterbacks going to enter the portal ahead of Friday night's deadline, giving Steve Angeli's arrival? And the answer turned out to be no. So nothing has changed on the outgoing side of things in the football portal. The biggest news of the weekend, quite literally in many ways, is the addition of one George Rooks to the Orange defensive line. If you were a longtime Orange football watcher, you might say, George Rooks. I thought I already watched him play football for Syracuse. And you would be correct, because George Rooks' dad, George Rooks, was part of the great Orange defense's late 80s, early 90s. He was the Big East Defensive Player of the Year back in 1991, eventually was drafted by the New York Football Giants, where his son was a pretty high-level recruit, started his career at Michigan, 2 years there, didn't play a ton, portaled off to Boston College, started for BC the last 2 years, and now in light of Murad Watson exiting for Texas here within the course of the last week, the Orange pick up George Rooks, who has 2 years of legitimate starting experience at that position in the ACC. Legacy guy with his dad. All things considered, pretty good pickup on the quick there for Fran after losing Murad Watson last week. So like to see that one. Trevor Pena, who had been crystal balled initially by Mike McAllister to Penn State, made that official over the weekend. So it always felt like Miami was the early name out there. Penn State entered the mix. Those were the two really big-time college football teams with significant wide receiver need that showed interest, so it makes sense that Trevor ends up at Penn State. So we can keep November 8th circled for Miami's trip to the Dome, but we don't have to extra circle it because Trevor Pena will be in the Dome. Syracuse and Penn State they're not scheduled to play again for 3-4 years, something like that. There's a series with Penn State upcoming in a couple of years in the Dome and in Happy Valley. All right, couple other names to watch that we've been watching. David Woolabub found his landing spot. He's off to Virginia. So that makes sense. That's a good landing spot for Woolabub's gone. Kentucky, Syracuse, and Virginia. So one legacy guy in Woolabub is out, and another legacy guy in Rooks is in. Now we continue to look at positions of need. Jonte Cook, remember him, the former Texas wide receiver, former major recruit for the Longhorns, who is technically transferring from Washington after he transferred to Washington back in December, and then, I think he was there for a light lunch. I don't know. He wasn't there for very long. Jonte Cook has been crystal balled to Syracuse by Steve Wiltfong and Pete Nakos of On3. Ooh, crystal balls. We like crystal balls. Crystal balls are the currency of Portal Watch. Yet they do crystal balls with a caveat. They crystal balled him to Syracuse with a confidence level of 60%. Crystal ball with a confidence level of 60%. That's what? Like a 60% crystal ball? What even is that? How? Like, that's nothing. That's just what's a 60% crystal ball? Like, that's what are we talking about? How do you 60% crystal ball anything? Like, if you 60% in school, that's an F. Like, 60% crystal ball. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm going to need a crystal ball to the crystal ball to understand if that crystal ball means a hill of beans or anything. So we'll continue to watch on Jonte Cook. What's a 60% crystal ball? Like, a crystal ball is like, yeah, he's going there. 60% is like, that's like when you shake the magic 8 ball and they're like, results are cloudy. That's 60%. 60% chance of rain, and it ends up being perfectly sunny. That's 60%. Okay, so there's that. We'll continue to monitor Jonte Cook and the other wide receivers. All right, Mike McAllister's in the chat. He stands by a confident crystal ball. He says either crystal ball it or don't. Don't confidence level. I'm 100% with you. If you're looking into the crystal ball, you either saw something or you didn't. Like, let's not try to interpret the future here based off some random tea leaves that don't mean anything. Couple other names to watch. Mohamed Toure, former Rutgers linebacker. When healthy, excellent. Remember, the Orange got the linebacker from South Dakota last week. Toure's problem, not healthy often. He missed all of last season injured. Mike McAllister with more info on the crystal balls. Apparently on 3, apparently the default for their crystal balls is 60%, and most people don't change it. Well, thank goodness Mike McAllister works for 24/7, because that sounds stupid. What a stupid system. The default is 60%? What? Do on 3, do better with your crystal ball technology. Dumb. I don't like it. Bad. Fix it. Demand, make it one of those things where if you're filing it, you know those websites you got to like click the thing to make sure you've acknowledged the thing before you can go to the next page? That should be part of On3's crystal ball posting policy. You got to click the button that you acknowledge the crystal ball percentage before you move on. Otherwise, people like me will say, "What crystal ball? That's a cubic zirconium ball." Nonsense. Yeah. Problem solved. You're welcome. Anywho, so Toure is a guy that would be great when healthy. He's been injured off and on. So we'll see all that going forward. Yeah. Before you may enter your crystal ball, you must tell me how many stoplights are in this picture. Give me something. Jeez. Mike McAllister, whose crystal balls are rock solid, also had this information earlier today. Where'd I put it? Where'd I put Mike's information? This was technically from yesterday. It says 23 hours ago. That was yesterday. Anyway, former UNC offensive lineman and 5-star recruit Zach Rice is currently visiting Syracuse. And Mike mentioned Florida State's DJ Ferguson, South Carolina's Cam Pringle, who were reportedly supposed to be here over the weekend. And we mentioned last week, like, if you are a top-level offensive lineman in the portal, Fran's at least inviting you over for just a quick hi, howdy, hello. Well, the Zach Rice thing sounds good. He was the top-ranked offensive line guy in his class. Minor problem. I think he's been there 4 years and has played like 40-some-odd snaps ever in offensive line. So it's not worked out great, but the talent at least was there at some point. So guys to watch out for, portal watching, looking all over the place. It's continuing on the football side of things. Fran is clearly not done. We're still looking maybe linebacker, definitely looking wide receiver, definitely looking offensive line. Took care of the D-tackle spot over the weekend with George Rooks. Basketball, all quiet on the Western Front right now. We told you last week about the 2 guys the Orange have been in on, including Jerry Deng that ended up going elsewhere. There was the USC forward that had at least been batting eyelashes at each other last week, but no big news there. Is there room for another contributor? Maybe. Is there money for another contributor? Don't know. But that is something we'll continue to monitor on the Red Autry side of things as well in the portal. Little portal watch for you on a Monday. Man, I think we've led the show with portal watch basically every day for the last month and a half. Like, it made me a little itchy to leave that to hour 2. That didn't feel great. Maybe we'll have to go back to the lead tomorrow. We had a little NFL draft, a little Kyle McCord to bring to you today. Made it all the way almost to 5:20 today before getting you portal watch. I don't know. Maybe some big news. Fran, come on. You know what you got to do, Fran. You want us to lead the show with Portal Watch? It's very simple, Fran. Any of those names we just said, you just got to tell us they're coming to Syracuse, and that's how we'll start the show tomorrow. Very simple, Fran. Very simple. Fran knows how the show works. Some of these, Steve Angeli, we got to work on. 6:07 breaking news, Steve. Come on, Steve. 4:07. That's a great o'clock for breaking news. All right, we'll take a break. Phone lines remain open next. 315-437-7644. This hour brought to you by dvoffers.com. Lax? They got to get back on track. And whatever's on your mind. That after this here on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
Follow.
I'm taking shots at McAllister's competition. Mike, Kevin from Liverpool says he can't see you in the chat. Did you block Kevin by accident? Kev wants back in on the Mike McAllister Life and Times. We got to bring people back together. Did you block Kev on purpose? I don't know. If so, you can tell us. He can't see you. Mike says he didn't. Is there a way to check? Was there an accidental button click? Is Twitch just being weird? Amaparola? He was mostly at end. I think he'll probably still be at end in that pass rushing role. Mike says you're not blocked, Kev. So, did you accidentally block Mike, Kevin? Yeah, maybe you accidentally blocked Mike. His name is Mike McAllister 1, Kev. You joined his channel. We're just trying to bring everybody back together. People love the Portal Watch. The numbers, I don't even know how people knew, the numbers always go up when we talk Portal Watch. Can you see him now, Kevin? You're blocked, bowling ball. How dare you have a sensible, real answer, bowling ball? Kev can't see you. That's very peculiar. We will accept no Mubot hatred in this dojo. Mike McAllister is going to log off and log back on. What's I looking up? Yeah, I'd be surprised. The Hakeem Williams update I saw was he was not visiting Miami, and it was down to Syracuse. Where was it? Did Mike have it? Yeah. Hakeem Williams is not visiting Miami. He's choosing between Colorado Pitt and Syracuse, it appears. According to Zach Blowstein of Knowles247.com. Yeah, I'd be surprised if they got both. I mean, the hope is you get one.
all across CNY. It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, roll along here on this Monday. May is later this week. Starts on Thursday. The month of May and the sport of college lacrosse are the best of friends. It means conference tournaments. It means the NCAA tournament. It means when legends are made, when championships are won, when rings are handed out. Well, Syracuse has ended April on a 3-game losing skid. Had the big win against Notre Dame in the Dome. Huge crowd, big win, without question. Without question, the best Syracuse has played and looked under Gary Gait now in his 4th year. It was the game where you're like, oh, we were trying to talk about how this team might be able to compete for a Final Four and a national title. Maybe it hasn't quite looked like it this year, but if it's going to, that's why. That game, why? That game was why. Since then, Syracuse has lost to Cornell down on Long Island, number 1 team in the country. No shame in losing to Cornell. The way the game was played was just like, it was, like that wasn't necessarily the best foot forward for Syracuse. Then you go down to Duke. And a Duke team that you think you're better than, but it's, coin flip situation going in. Same deal. Just didn't feel like you put your best foot forward. Lose to Duke. Now you're back at the Dome. All right, the other 2 losses were away from the Dome. Okay, you've struggled a bit in the top games away from the Dome this year. But aside from that weird one against Harvard, you have defended your home building, and the best games you've played this season, Hopkins, Notre Dame, a few others, came right here inside the Dome. North Carolina 14, Syracuse 12. In a game that, is that a blowout? No. But the Orange had a 4-2 lead. You give up 4 straight to end the first half, and then you're never able to get back in front again. Never able to get back in front again. Carolina scores 5 of the first, 8 goals after halftime. You take the lead. It's 3, it's 2, it's 4. Then they get up by 6 in the fourth quarter. The Orange mad rally late, but you run out of time. That one, and I get it. Carolina's good. This is not an anti-Carolina statement. It's not like you lost to a team full of schlubs, but and it's not a game that is guaranteed to cost you the NCAA tournament. But that was a game that if you wanted to prove, again, that you're trying to be serious contenders for the Final Four, for, the championship, for, for the stuff that Syracuse lacrosse has been, and wants to be again, that's the game you go win. That's the game that Syracuse lacrosse, if you want to prove that you're Syracuse lacrosse, that's a game you got to go win. That's a game you got to go win. And again, is it a bad loss? No. Carolina's a good team. Carolina's a tournament team. It's a league game. Those games are very often coin flip games. Very often coin flip games. But if you want to, make a run this year, that's the type of game you got to win. Because now, home game in the playoffs, likely out. Though, if you win the ACC tournament, that means you're picking up wins against Notre Dame and either Carolina, Duke in the span of 3 days. You're going to juice your RPI. You're going to juice your strength of schedule. You're going to juice your big wins, and you may juice your way back into playing a home playoff game. But if Syracuse doesn't do that, I think they'd have to win 2 games to get a home playoff game. You may have to win 1 game to make the playoffs. We'll talk to Tim Leonard here in a sec with the 411. There are scenarios here, and maybe plenty of scenarios where Syracuse can still make the playoffs with a loss. But the fact remains here that you started the season ranked 2nd in the country, and this is now the conversation we're having when the calendar is flipping to May later this week. When you're preseason number 2 in the country, this is not the conversation you're supposed to be having when the calendar is set to flip to May later this week. I get the schedule is hard. The schedule is always hard. But when you're number 2 in the country and your goals are quite simply Final Four national championship, when you're discussing, are they going to make the playoffs? When that's the discussion on April 28th, that was not a discussion they wanted to be having this season. We'll see what happens later this week. You go out and win the ACC tournament, and any of these 4 teams can win the ACC tournament. All 4 are equally capable of winning this tournament this weekend. Who's the favorite? Haven't a clue. Syracuse beat Notre Dame 3 weeks ago. Can they win the tournament? Of course they can. Like, you look at Carolina or Duke. Syracuse didn't get run off the field by them. You tell me any of these teams win the ACC tournament, which, again, is technically for nothing. There's no auto bid on the line. But it's for RPI, and you sure as heck is for seeding when we get toward the NCAA tournament. But, man, talking about a pressure game on Friday, it's not a win and you're in, losing you're out, but it's a lose, and my goodness, that's going to be a nervy wait finding out what's going to go down in the NCAA tournament with the selection show. With that, we'll step aside for a few. We'll get Tim in here, a little 411. That is next here on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
The sport.
That's a fact, Jen. Optimism gone. Mike and Kev can see each other once more. What a moment. Oh, yeah. Optimism gone, Super Cat. Optimism gone. Goodwill of the Notre Dame game washed away. It's all falling apart. Doom and gloom. Like, could this team still make the Final Four? Yeah, they could, but I'm not feeling it right now. Yeah. They've forgotten about their beef so much, T-Takes, that nobody can even remember what their beef was. Yeah, my optimism was crushed by the Harvard game, Mike, but the Notre Dame game, it slowly grew back. It slowly grew back. In the Notre Dame game, optimism had returned. Final Four possible again. Now it's crushed. Oh, is that true, San Diego Q's? Kick those tires. Nico Ottamanelli? Like, if the Campanellis don't know this guy and Fran doesn't know this guy, I'd be shocked. Like, you cannot have come out of the spring game in any way confident about the kicking game. Like, we watched Jaden Noe last year. Like, and if he's the guy right now, like, I thought this guy from Iowa was going to be the guy. He doesn't have a strong leg. Their beef was so long and old, Super Cat, then who can even remember? Did one of them accidentally click a button to block the other? It was so long ago, who can say? But on this beautiful Monday, they've come back together as one, as friends, in the Q Sports Talk chat. Who said what about who? Who cares? Yeah, but in the new world of the 105 Scullies and stuff, like, that doesn't matter as much sport. Like, go improve the roster. I would rather have one less linebacker or one less defensive back or one less wide receiver to have a good kicker if this guy's good. Now, if he's going in the portal now or just recently went in the portal, like, maybe he's not actually good. I don't know. Nico Otto Manelli. McAllister, get on it. What's this kicker doing? How did he enter the portal an hour ago? The portal closed on Friday. Is this like just late paperwork? He's a redshirt freshman who's never played. Yeah, how did he enter the portal an hour ago? Must be like there is a grace period of when you give the paperwork to the compliance people and when it gets put in the system. So very over the limit, sport boy. Like I said this back in the 85 scholarship era, in the long, long ago, that I'd be perfectly fine in roster composition to spend 5 scholarships on kickers, punters, long snapper. I know not necessarily 2 kickers would want to do that, but if you could spread it out so you had a kicker going out, kicker coming in, punter going out, punter coming in, I'd be all for it. And put your long snapper on Scully. Especially in college, hashtag college kickers. Especially at Syracuse, where you've had so much good kicking. Well, that's also the thing that we were talking about with Amanda earlier, T-Takes, that you got to wait till the house ruling is done of that with the judge to really know what the rules are going to be. Alrighty, rolling along here on this beautiful Monday, all about Central New York. What do you have? Mostly clear in 72. Don't mind if I do here as we get moving to the 411.
Here's the 411.
Hello, and welcome to Movie Phone.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
In the 315.
So you're going to be doing that all week, right?
Nah.
Well, what's going on is the 411 is brought to you by our friends at Superior Plus Propane. Oh, what a day it would be for grilling. As I said, mostly clear in 72. Looks like it's going to be the nicest day all week here as we hit spring in CNY. Tim is here. What's up, Tim?
Going to be nice in Charlotte, too. I'm very excited.
Yeah, you're going to Charlotte.
Yeah. Not to rub it in, but ACC tournament.
Yeah, that was a very direct rubbing of it in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nice here now. We've made it,
It's nice. It's going to get a little... It's not going to wintry again, but I think there's a little rain later in the week. The April flowers and the May flowers,
Sure, that thing.
The whole thing. That's the way we do that.
I hear people talk about that. Makes sense.
Yep.
All right, so you're talking a little lacrosse. Alarm
bells? What should we be doing here, Tim? We panicking? Should we panic? It's always fun to panic a little.
I think we should panic from a sense of it's been pretty underwhelming how they played, to say the least, the last 3 weeks, really, since the Notre Dame game. Also, though, I feel that the perception out there is, they're not making the tournament. They are not making the tournament. And I tried to kind of lay it out on Orange Nation today. For anyone that missed that, they really still probably will make the tournament, even if they lose to Notre Dame.
Yeah, they've just removed all margin for error, right?
Yeah, it's because the bubble is very soft this year. Like, honestly, there's no one on the bubble that can leapfrog Syracuse. It's just a matter of if Yale goes and wins the Ivy League and then they're in the tournament, that's one spot that's not being accounted for right now. But Yale winning the Ivy League is probably a 1% chance, honestly, this year. I mean,
like Cornell and Princeton and Harvard are pretty good.
Yeah, and Cornell gets them at home in the first game. C.J. Kersh scored 9 on them in the regular season. I mean,
is that it? Just 9?
Yeah.
Quick 9?
Yale lost like 15-5 to Princeton this week. So I'm trying not to be too bullish on the chances of a bid stealer not happening. I'm less worried about Yale, and I think Syracuse fans...
Screwy stuff always happens in the Big Ten. What's going on in the Big Ten?
So the Big Ten...
They lead the country in bid stealing.
The good news is the last couple years, Michigan has been a bid stealer in the Big Ten, and they have won the Big Ten tournament. This year, the Big Ten tournament is in Ann Arbor, and Michigan has already lost. They played in the quarterfinals last week and lost.
Hopkins lost as well.
Hopkins lost. So that removed 2 bid stealers. So it's just Rutgers is the only potential bid stealer from the Big Ten. And Rutgers...
Do we need to send Fran Brown to take him out?
We could. That'd be a good idea, yeah.
I think so. He's the man for the job. This is a Jersey situation.
If it's Jersey, Fran Brown, we can count on.
We're sending Fran in the Campanellis. Come on.
But Rutgers is playing Ohio State this week, and then they would play the winner of Penn State and Maryland.
And those 3 are all in the tournament.
Those 3 are all in. They could beat Ohio State. They could win the Big Ten tournament. Like, it's not crazy. I think it's pretty crazy to say Yale would win the Ivy. And, of course, somehow Yale will probably do it just because I'm this confident in it.
Could Army, yak the Patriot League or something? Like, is that a team you got to watch out for?
Yeah.
Are there any other of the smaller conferences where it's would be a 1-bid league if
I think there's two. It's Army and Richmond. Army is one spot behind Syracuse and RPI right now. The concern for me would be, let's say Army wins their first game and then they lose to BU, who is ranked in the championship final of the Patriot League.
Mm-hmm.
That loss is their best case scenario in terms of a loss in the Patriot League tournament. And I still think it would drop them pretty substantially to the point where it's hard to see Army having a better resume than Syracuse. Army has one top 20 RPI win right now, and it's UNC at home.
And go figure, this is the year that Syracuse and Army did not play.
I know, yeah, of all the years. And it seems like that isn't going to be a thing next year either. But it's just how it worked out this year. The bubble is very soft. Richmond is another one. Now, Terry Foy, who we've had on the show, friend of the show.
Yes.
Yes, Inside Lacrosse CEO, tweeted something out today and said, basically, I know people in theory think that Army and Richmond are prospective bid stealers because of where they are in RPI, but he was like, Cuse fans should be more worried about Rutgers and Yale, and basically was saying it does seem like it's a very low chance that there is a bid stealer this year. Now, I'm a little bit more worried of Richmond and Army than I think he is, maybe just based on that tweet, not having talked to Terry. But Richmond is 9 in RPI right now, which is 2 spots ahead of the Orange. The thing, though, is the A10, you're just going to take a really bad loss if you don't win that tournament, you know? But Richmond doesn't have a bad loss this year. They've actually got a pretty impressive resume, and they've kept it close. That's the thing about Richmond. They always play close with all these tough teams.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Maryland, they lost, but it was a pretty close game. They actually won at Virginia, which at the time seemed like a better win. Virginia really wasn't very good this year. But still, that's a ACC win. So I think Richmond or Army is a little worrisome. If Syracuse beats Notre Dame, they'll be in. But if they lose, I still think it's pretty likely that they sneak in.
And I guess here's the major problem right now, is that this is the conversation we're having.
Yeah, and also, if they sneak in, they're almost definitely, by my theory, going to Ohio State or Penn State, because the other teams that are borderline, they're not going to go to a 1 or a 2 seed because those are reserved for the play-in games in the lower conference, you know?
Yeah.
So basically all the teams that are in the hosting range, but not, say, Maryland or Princeton or Cornell in that 1 to 2, 3 range, it's a lot of ECC teams, and then it's Ohio State and Penn State. So I feel like they would put them against, even though it's a flight, Ohio State or Penn State, I guess, would be different.
Penn State's a nice bus ride.
Yeah, Penn State would be a bus ride. So maybe Penn State.
There's the one road you just drive, and there's some farms, then you're like, what the hell? And then you're in Happy Valley.
Yeah. You would know better. I don't think they would do an ACC first-round game if they can avoid it, right?
Yeah, not if they can avoid it.
Yeah.
I'd say I'm sure that's happened before.
Right.
But has it, I know this, Syracuse has never played somebody in their own conference in their first round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So could Army maybe still be it just feels like Army, even if they win the Patriot League, might not have a hosting-worthy resume, but they might be on the fringes.
Because Syracuse still hosts if they win the ACC tournament? I could see them winning their way back into, the 8th seed or the 7th seed.
Well, that's what's so crazy about this, and I get why the panic button is being pushed today, because it was a very deflating loss. And I was the first. I thought they were going to beat UNC, and I talked to a lot of fans, and they were kind of in agreement, this is the game you win. I think we even had that conversation.
I said it would be very Syracuse to win that game. It just felt like a Syracuse kind of win.
It felt so much like the Virginia game last year, and I think Gary even said something in his post-game press conference, just because everyone's saying you're going to win doesn't mean you're going to win the game. So
he was correct.
Yeah. Right.
I guess
sounds so simple.
I guess it was his post-game press conference, so it's easy to be correct after the game.
I get that sounds so simple, but I think what he was getting at is, yeah, it felt like a game we would win because it just would get you back on track, but it didn't work out that way. And now it feels like Notre Dame is the game that they have no chance of winning, just because how are they going to beat Notre Dame after Notre Dame's been playing better and they've been playing so much worse since they played them, and Notre Dame wants revenge.
But can Syracuse just, I look at the way these last month of games has happened, and I feel that a lot of this is about Syracuse, right? If Syracuse has played the way they played against Notre Dame, against Cornell, against Duke, against North Carolina, I said if they played that game, they would have won any of those 3 games. But they didn't play that game.
Yeah, and I think Notre Dame is way more gettable than normal because
it's not last year Notre Dame.
Yeah, they kind of have the same problem that Syracuse has of not putting 60 minutes together. I mean, they didn't score for the first 29 minutes down in Chapel Hill, then just looked unbeatable and beat them 12-6. Then they were down pretty much the entire game to Penn, and Penn is not good, and that would have been a tough loss considering their tournament resume. And they came back and won 10-8, I think was the final. So, yeah, it's just lacrosse is weird. Like Duke could have lost. I mean, Duke somehow beat Virginia again, which is 20 straight regular season wins. And if Duke had lost that game, they would have been out of the ACC tournament. They won in overtime this week. And if they were out of the ACC tournament, then Syracuse is probably not the last team in right now. It's more Duke is the last team in and having this conversation. So, even though Syracuse is not, I mean, we keep saying they control their own destiny, they just need to get one win, and they haven't been able to do it, they might still sneak in somehow.
Again, Virginia has won 4 national championships since they have last beaten Duke in the regular season. In related news, they play them every year.
Right.
It's crazy. It's one of the weirdest stats in college lacrosse. They can't, and they've beaten Duke, I don't want to say plenty, but ACC tournament, NCAA tournament, they've beaten Duke in some significantly important games over the years. Can't beat them in the regular season. It's the weirdest thing.
I really think that is one of the craziest stats in sports right now.
It makes no sense.
I know I'm all into lacrosse more than other people, but the fact that 20 straight regular seasons where Virginia has been a very good program. I mean, they had some lean years there, but
they've
still.
won 4 national championships in that time. And I think in at least 2 of those years, I want to say they beat Duke in the playoffs.
Yes, I think they did.
Like overtime games, like some of the craziest games of that stretch are Virginia beating Duke. Can't beat him in the regular season. Don't get it. Yeah, I'd say the main disconcerting thing is, you go back to January, February. Number 2 in the country. Is Syracuse back? Like last year, quarterfinals right there. Just didn't play well in that game.
And they lose in the same way, right? It feels like the turnovers and struggling against a 10-man ride, we're seeing the same trends and themes, which is very concerning. And it's also even more frustrating because I know they have been working on all those little things. And they actually did seem to be much better in all those things that were plaguing them throughout a good chunk of the season. But the last 2 weeks, it's like they went back to 2 years ago or something.
That's what makes it hard to think that you could win 4 in a row to win the title, because when it's that kind of stuff is the reason you're losing, it's hard to avoid that stuff for a month.
Right. And it's just a little bit of a tightness that they play with in big games, it seems like. And I know that every team understands, like UNC was probably nervous for that game. It's in the Dome. It's in front of the most people they've ever played in front of, maybe. But at the same time, it just feels like Syracuse has the weight of that national championship drought and the Final Four drought and all that is Syracuse lacrosse.
Well, man, I mean, we're sitting here now. It's 12 years this year since the Final Four and 16 years since the title. Like, it's that
crazy.
Yeah. For Syracuse lacrosse, that is an extreme, obviously an extreme drought. And yet there is a lot of weight. Like, whether they talk about it, they don't talk about it, like, you can't forget about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if it's your mantra or you put it in the background. Everybody is aware of what's going on.
And it is a lot tougher to make the Final Four now than it used to be, obviously. Like, you see these teams this year that struggled with expectations, the likes of Hopkins, Virginia. Denver made the Final Four last year, and they didn't even make the Big East tournament, you know?
They're hosting it, though.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The whole league's going to fly out to Denver.
Right, which is an amazing side story. You know, Yale's another example. They had expectations. Loyola couldn't win a game this year. But all that said, this also was a great year to go and grab it and get to the Final Four, because it is wide open, and it's a transition year for Duke and a transition year for Virginia. And the ACC really isn't that great this year. It's just everyone is kind of cannibalizing each other, but there's no great team. And on paper, Syracuse is talented enough to be that great team, and they just have not put 60 minutes together enough.
No. All right. Tim is off to Charlotte. That is Friday, 5 o'clock, Syracuse and Notre Dame. At least you're in the first game.
Yeah, I like that.
You know exactly what time it's going to start, which is a beautiful thing when it comes to tournament sports. 4:30 pregame, Kyle and Tim over on TK on Friday. What time's the title game Sunday?
It's noon.
Noon on Sunday if they win? All right. So we'll hopefully need to know that on Sunday.
11:30 pregame Sunday. Put it now. We'll see.
We've
That'd be great.
We've penciled it on the schedule. All right, there he is. Tim Leonard. We'll take a break. Tell you what's on tap after this here on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
Hey, this is.
Need to look at the door. What is on tap? Is anything on tap? We got playoffs? What do we got?
Nah.
To the door.
Yankees play tonight against the Orioles.
Door.
What's the door?
Pregame starts at 5:55.
That's really odd. Well, I guess it's
6:30.
Yeah.
What's that?
6:35 maybe.
I just don't know. I understand why they started bumping the early season first pitches with weather and whatnot, but then the games got faster.
Right.
And now they're all like the game's over at like 9. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, the guy who hosts the Yankees show at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Going back to more 7 o'clock.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Makes sense, VP. Makes sense. What did I see? Stojakovic to Illinois today? That's kind of the position he's taken.
The way I see it, the podcast is either Scooter or Lax.
We're going to go Lax, a little 156. Yeah. Yeah, I forget what I saw, San Diego Q's. Like, once you as long as you handed in the paperwork by the deadline, the compliance has like 48 hours or something to actually submit it. Yeah, I can see them both having a good season, VP. Though, I understand why they both moved on. Well, I'm sorry for that as well, Kev. It sounds upsetting. Oh, Pastor Tim, remember when we used to plan ahead for Memorial Day weekend? And the plans were around lacrosse? Now we plan like barbecues and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably business days, right, San Diego Q's? That would be a very NCAA. Work weekends in sports? What? I bet they get one of them, VP. Well, they better come around at him, T-Takes. He's going to be there for a minute. That's what I'm saying, Bixby. Yeah, Q's fans used to reserve their hotel rooms, like if the Final Four was in the same place back-to-back years, like when they were checking out. The olden days.
All across CNY, It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, back at it with the final wraps on it for our opening day of the week as we transition from April to May this week.
Here's what's on tap tonight.
Oh, what do we got? You're going to be able to, you can flip the channel right when we're done here. It's going to go like we end, and Yankees pregame is going to be starting over on TK. It's a 6:30 first pitch tonight in Baltimore for the Yankees and the O's. No Yankees on deck this week until Friday due to the odd first pitch times. Friday's the only 7 o'clock first pitch of the week for the Yanks, so that'll be over on TK coming up uno momento. On tap tomorrow for the show, my guy Sean Stiers, who covers Notre Dame, he emailed me the other day because he wanted to talk to me about something. And I'm like, wait, I want to talk to you about something. So we're going to talk to each other about things tomorrow. We'll have Sean Stiers on the show to talk about the newest Orange quarterback in Steve Angeli and get his thoughts on what Syracuse is getting in Angeli, and maybe we can get a thought maybe on how the quarterback battle is going to go down between Angeli and Ricky Collins. So that'll be interesting to discuss with Sean tomorrow, and we'll see what other trouble we can kick up before things get going tomorrow. Portal watch on football. Is Fran going to get one of these O-linemen, one of these wideouts, another linebacker, a kicker? Who the heck knows with Fran Brown? He's always out there doing stuff out there in the transfer portal. So we'll check that all out on the program tomorrow for sure. With that, we'll put the wraps on things. Hope you've enjoyed the day, everybody. Enjoy your evening. We're back at it tomorrow right here, 4 o'clock on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.